Hello and welcome to the Live Streamer Backstage podcast. I'm Alec Johnson and this is a weekly show where I interview fellow live streamers to understand how they are using live streaming as a tool in their business and to discover the tech, the gear and the software that they use to produce great live shows. My guest today is Ian Anderson-Gray. Ian is an international speaker, trainer, teacher and consultant and of course live streamer. Ian is the founder of the Confident Live Marketing Academy and is the host of the Confident Live Marketing Podcast. And he helps entrepreneurs to level up their impact, authority, and profits by using live video confidently. He's also the founder of Seriously Social, a blog focused on live video and social media tools. And he has a passion for making the technobabble of live video and social media marketing easy to understand for those getting started. One of the things that all of my guests on this podcast say is that you don't need the latest tech gear to start live streaming. It's fine to start with what you've got and then grow from there. What is often overlooked, though, is that you do need a certain level of confidence on camera. And I think that this is really a barrier to so many people with hitting that live button for the first time. It's such a strange thing that people who ordinarily have no such confidence issues in a real environment, as it were, with real people, suddenly find themselves, in some cases, frozen when it comes to going live. I remember the first time that I went live long before I had my Take One Tech YouTube channel, and it was on Facebook, and I clearly recall that it felt rather nerve-wracking, to say the least, the first time I did go live. I think this is really interesting to dive into and into the limitations that we often impose on ourselves in this respect, and to discuss how to eliminate some of those limiting beliefs and foster a confident live mindset, because confidence on camera is something that can be developed with guidance and with practice. So who then is better to have this conversation with than the man behind the Confident Live Academy himself, Ian Anderson-Gray. Ian, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, it's great to be here, Alec. Thank you so much. I'm a big admirer of all that you do. And so it's a real pleasure to be here and talking about something that I'm really passionate about, because I've been there. I empathize very greatly with that feeling that you had that first time you went live. In fact, the word I would use for the first time I went live was petrified. I was so nervous.
I think that's so common, though. It's such a weird thing. This, that there's no difference to just talking on a Zoom call or something. But somehow, when you think that it's live, there's something else that comes into it all. But likewise, I've been a big fan of all that you're doing, and I know that we think in very similar ways on a number of things. So I'm really looking forward to sort of diving into this a little bit more. But for those that don't know, perhaps you can just give a little bit more about your sort of background and how you ended up in, doing what you're doing and how that led into a live video as well, perhaps.
Well, it was all planned completely, from a very early age. Not. So I think, like so many people, I kind of fell into this. My background is I've always been interested in technology. We were talking about ZX Spectrum computers just before we started recording, and I loved playing with technology when I was a kid. But music was a big part of my life. My mum was an opera singer, and I've married a musician. I trained as a professional singer, so I was very much about performance. But I was also into tech, and I started blogging, and the blog really took off. Out of the blue, I started being asked to speak at conferences. I had a lot of imposter syndrome, thinking, what on earth? Why on earth am I being asked to speak on the stages of the world talking about social media? But I spoke at Social Media Marketing World, and it was back in 2016, I think, is when Facebook Live came out. I wrote a blog post about how to go live to Facebook Live from your computer. It was using OBS Studio. You remember that old chestnut? And it went completely viral. It's had like millions of page views. But I was at Social Media Marketing World, and they have this kind of, it's very, very strange, but they have this musical number to open it. It's like a parody musical. And I think I was on stage singing, what was it? I can't even remember. There was some kind of musical. And I was on stage with the likes of Molly Mahoney. He was another live video person who's got a musical background, and Steve Dotto and stuff like that. And I was thinking, this is weird. Like, I never thought that my musical background, I almost felt that was irrelevant. But it came to me, there was an epiphany moment. My background in singing and in teaching and in technology came together with this new technology, well, new in the sense of Facebook Live and other technologies. I could teach people with confidence and with live video, with the technology, and that's how it all started. Um, but yeah, that year I realized people were asking me about live video. They were asking me to help them with the technology, but I wasn't going live because I was really, really nervous. I remember when Google Hangouts came on, and somebody asked me to join them, and I was sweating. I was petrified, and I was worried about making a complete fool of myself. And it reminds me of, as a singer, I remember singing in a choir on live on Radio 4. There was only three of us singing, and we were singing on Radio 4. And I remember thinking, this is live. Whatever comes out of my mouth, I can't change. I can't. And I think that's what it is. I think at its heart, we're worried about judgment. We're worried about making mistakes. And we forget that we're all human. We're all making mistakes. I've probably stumbled over my words. I've probably said something wrong in this interview so far. But we are worried about that, I think. So, yeah, that's my background. And I've been teaching live video and confidence ever since then. So it's been quite a journey.
It's really interesting how everyone on the that's been on the podcast, they've always got a load of previous experience that really sort of influences what they do as as live streamers. It's always interesting to hear like how that all comes together. But your experience there, you were talking about of the first time you went live. I mean, I mentioned mine in the intro there, but it was such a silly thing that I was doing. I was only just going live on my Facebook profile that I was using for business. So it was for a business thing that I was using it for. But it was just that I was the same thing. I was I don't know if petrified is the word but it's like literally I couldn't get to press the button the very first time, and it took me I'd sort of sit there and think, oh, am I going to do this, am I going to do this, and work my way up to it. And it seems so ridiculous now, but there is definitely something in us that has that fear about it. And
definitely,
how did you approach that then? So how did you get past that point, and what was your sort of your journey to that?
Well, I was forced into it. I was forced into it because people were asking me. I didn't have a choice. I had to go live. In order to demonstrate how to do the stuff. So I think that was it. But I think what also helped is that I did have, and I still do have, people around me who believe in me. And I think I talk about having two sets of teams around us. So but growing a team around you is what most people think about. That is, well, hire a virtual assistant, hire people, and that's smart. That really, really works. But there's a kind of team that you need to build before you get to that stage, and that is a team of people who believe in what you do and are going to encourage you, but also tell you the truth. So if you do something stupid, they're going to tell you that you've been stupid, but hopefully in an encouraging way. And I had people who believed in me. I didn't, but this is a crucial thing. I think a lot of people who want to help people, creators are people who tend to want to help people. We've come into this because we're wanting to make a transformation in people's lives, and often we don't believe in ourselves. We have this either imposter syndrome, or we somehow we listen to the lies that are being spoken in our heads. And so I'm going to sound like a bit weird here, but let's face it, we all have this. We tend to have this dialogue in our heads, this negative voice that's talking in our heads, who tells us that we don't know what we're talking about. And we tend to amplify that voice. And I think that's what happens when we go live. It's like the prehistoric part of the brain. Imagine that we were cave people, and then there's a tiger that is entering the cave and is about to attack us. There's this part of the brain that's just screaming at us, saying, "You're gonna die! You're gonna die! Get out of the way!" And that part of the brain hasn't really grown up. So it doesn't know how to deal with things like live video. It equates going live as this tiger that's about to eat you and kill you. And so one thing that's really helped me recently is, and this again is going to sound really weird, but bear with me on this, is personifying this anxiety. So my my kind of voice in my head is like a kind of I picture this is my personal thing. It's like a librarian, and he's there and he has to get everything sorted first. But he has to look things up in all the books and then come back, and then he'll so if you're going live next week, well, hold on, Ian, you have to work this one out, and I'll have to look it up in this book, and he will start to kind of try and protect me from going live because it equates that as something that's really, really bad. And so that's been really helpful, thinking just to start to be aware of that negative voice in your head and start to say, look, you know what? It's okay. I've got this covered. If things go wrong, it's okay. It doesn't matter. Start to kind of think about, well, what is the worst thing that's going to happen? Is the internet going to go off? Well, like, okay, well, I'll do it again. Or there's a power cut, or I say something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
What's the worst that's going to happen? And then you can go back to your anxiety in your head and say, it's all right, it's fine, I've got this covered. And that's really helped me.
It's I really like that that you can give these voices a character. They have got a distinct sort of character about them, and I certainly know that I've got plenty of them at various different times going on. So I can totally relate to that. The thing about the fear as well, I found that it was like worse when I was first starting out, when I didn't really know who I was speaking to as well. And then you feel that there could literally be absolutely anybody in the world could be watching this right now. And it's as my audience has grown, and I feel like I'm speaking to the same people. I'm seeing familiar people in the chat and things like that. That I find makes it more of then a conversation between me and that person or those people. And so then, just as if I was speaking with a group of friends in a room or something, if I make a little mistake, nobody really cares, do they? So the more familiar I've got with the people who are watching, then the easier I found that's got for me as well.
That's a really good point. And I think I found it very strange that I could sing in front of an audience of even 400 people, or I could speak to an audience. And okay, I would be nervous. Of course I'd be nervous. But I'd find that a lot easier than doing a live video at the start. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. First of all, like you say, you can't see the people who are watching you live. And the camera is this inanimate object. It sucks your energy from you. Whereas if you're on stage, you're kind of building off the energy of the room. And you can see the whites of people's eyes as well. So I think that's a big thing. And I didn't know who my audience was. I was just worried about people, just random people coming in. The funny thing about this, Alec, is that when we first start, what's the likelihood of us getting lots of people watching us live? If we're new to this, we're probably going to get like a big fat 0 or 1 or 2 people watching us if we're lucky. To begin with. Now as we grow and we do all the things that I know you've been teaching, that we will grow our audience. And so that is actually a really good way of looking at it. It's like if I was to draw a graph, you start with probably very few people watching you, but that's also at the same time you are at your worst.
Yes,
you're going to make mistakes. You're also going to be your most nervous as well. So it's a good job, isn't it? Amazing that actually there's probably not that many people going to be watching you at the start as you grow through that. And so that's something to remind ourselves definitely when we're starting.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, the first video I did live on my channel was live to a grand total of no one, and yet there's still this feeling of, because you're sort of live, technically the whole world could be watching. I think people do put that on their shoulders, that the whole world might be watching them. Even though we know obviously logically there's no one, but
I mean, it's funny, isn't it, that I think I said this to you before we started, that we are our own worst enemy. I don't think Facebook, LinkedIn, and all these channels do us any favors, because they put this big number on the top left-hand corner of your screen. So you know how many people are watching you. And it's either 0 or or a low number.
Yeah.
And we get really depressed and we think, oh, nobody loves me. Or it's like, oh my goodness, there's like 100 people, I'm gonna die. Like whatever the number is, we give ourselves a hard time. And my I'm a total hypocrite for advising this because I don't do this because it's really hard. But try not to look at that number. Just ignore it, because if you this is a very famous thing. A lot of people say this, but if you've got 5 people or 10 people watching you live, and 10 people is actually quite a good number. Imagine they all kind of knocked at your door and came into your front room, and you would then, they wanted to hear from you, and you started speaking to them. That would be pretty cool. So I think that number, we tend to kind of disassociate it with real people, and so it's the comments, it's the people there, it's the people that you're talking to, and of course, it's not just the live people, it's the replay. It's, and this is something that I know you do really well, Alec, and that is you repurpose all your stuff. So it's all the people in the future you've got to think about too.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny, really, the way the way that we can sort of play these little tricks on ourselves. And one of the things we were talking about before was. There you go. You see, my mind's just gone completely blank as I was just about to talk about it. This is exactly the sort of thing that goes on in our minds. It happens
to me all the time. Yeah, so it makes me feel better.
But it's one of those things that, you feel sort of self-conscious about these things when they happen. But actually, most people at home, even though I might have just forgotten the very point that I was about to say, most people don't really care about that anyway. So,
well, that's reminded me of something. Like when I was doing a lot of singing, I would, so I'd be singing this piece of music. And there's this like inner dialogue, and it's exactly the same thing when you're doing a live video. There's this inner dialogue, and it's this voice. It's this. So in my case, it's the librarian. He's giving you like this commentary. You remember that, like you used to watch when you watch DVDs, a movie, it would have like, there would be the director's commentary. So it's almost like that. It's this voice saying, "So yes, well you got that bit right, Alec, but yeah, you stumbled over your words there. You need to try harder next time." Yeah. And it's kind of like this. And I was singing, and I was just really aware of, like, I think there was a word I forgot. I don't know, made it up or something. And then afterwards, people came up to me and said, "Oh, Ian, that was like amazing. That was so good." And I was thinking, but no, I got it wrong. How can you say that? And yeah, it's just, we can be so judgmental. We're worried about other people judging us when there's this person really close to us, i.e. us, who's the biggest judge of them all. And especially if, as I know we are, or both of us, we are recovering perfectionists. So we're the kind of the worst culprits when it comes to this. So it's coming back to what I said before. We need to start believing the truth. And one thing that I really recommend doing, this sounds a little bit touchy-feely, but create a truth document about, and put in there things that you know to be true about yourself. Brag about yourself, and it will feel, if you're like me, it will feel really uncomfortable doing this. Ask people to help, and then you can look at that occasionally, particularly if you're having a bit of a wobble, and think, actually, you know what? I do know what I'm talking about, and I have done quite a few live videos. And in the past, people have really found my content helpful. Because believe it or not, I in the past, I have believed the lie that I'm no good, that I'm not professional, that I don't know what I'm talking about. All these kind of stupid things and I believed them to be true, and I've used that as an excuse to not go live for a whole month. We were talking about backgrounds earlier, and I'm never happy with my background, and I used that as an excuse to not go live for a whole month. I used technology as an excuse, when the real reason was that I was nervous about going live and looking like an idiot. And my audience were waiting for me, and I was actually being selfish. I was being self-indulgent, and we need to get beyond ourselves and think about what are we actually trying to achieve, and do that. And that is why sometimes these techniques like a truth document is helpful, but actually sometimes we just need help from other people, whether that's a coach, a mentor, or friends around us.
It's funny there you mentioned about it's selfish holding the information back. There's been probably 2 or 3 times where there's been a video that I've made. This is not specifically live, but it's along the similar sort of thread really, where there's a video that I made that I thought that wasn't really very good. Maybe it wasn't in line with what I normally do on the channel or things like that. And I've actually questioned whether or not I should take it down or not because I just wasn't happy with it. It's funny, those have been the videos that I've got the best response from. People have said like, this has been game changing for me. I'm so pleased you made this video. And like it comes back to this, we are our own worst critics, and the things that we are focused in on, like our backgrounds or whatever it is, or the the little details in our videos. The people who are watching are actually not looking at that. They're focused on the information that you're giving and how you're helping them. So
it's so true and this is really annoying for people like us because we love technology and I'm assuming you're like me in this, that you like fiddling around and getting everything looking cool.
Yeah,
and like it takes one to know one, and actually sometimes that can get I don't want to say this because it's a bit, I think it's true, but I don't want to admit this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm going to say it quickly. Actually, it doesn't matter. People don't really care about it. They will say, "Oh, Alec, you're. I love your background. I love all the technology. I love your audio, and I love your." And I'm not saying those things don't matter, because I think it does. It does set you apart from some other content, but ultimately, it is the content. It is you.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this with. I'm not massively into Instagram, but I remember I was like going through some Instagram stories. And you can like tap to go on to the next story.
Yes,
just skip it. And I just noticed I'm tapping quite a bit here. Why am I skipping over these? And I went back and I realized I was skipping over some creators' stories because they looked too professional.
Right.
And the reason I skipped over them is I thought they were ads.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think sometimes we can actually put people off if things are too professional.
Mm-hmm.
We need to just focus on being real and on the message as well. And I hate to admit that because, like you, I love dabbling, and I love and I'm not saying professional working on making things professional is a bad thing. It is a good thing, but don't just spend your time on that. Focus on the other things too.
Yeah, it's definitely what they're getting out of it. If they've got to get value out of it as well, not just it look pretty.
Yeah.
And in fact, you mentioned there something that it not looking too polished. That's almost like if you do make mistakes, it does make you more accessible. It does make you more sort of human. And I'm not one for really heavily edited videos where every little mistake or gap of breath of air indeed has been sort of sucked out of it because it's got all these jump cuts in. And I was talking about, in fact, Katie's in the chat at the moment, Katie Simpson. We were talking about this where people edit to within an inch of within an inch of its life, and there's no gaps in it, no pauses, and I find that really tiring actually. So where you've just got these sort of natural flow, I find far more easy to listen to, and I then relate to the person a lot more as well.
And if you do make mistakes, just laugh at yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously. Mm-hmm. And I know you've done this before. Like if you press the wrong button, you just kind of like silly me or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know what you do, but like, and I think I would be tempted to cut that bit out. And and then I think no, why? Just like make a bit of fun about it. And actually, you could almost make that a bit of a thing and like zoom into it and think like, what a plonker, as we would say in the UK. Like, just don't take yourself so seriously, because I actually, so I did a workshop last week and I shared my studio setup so I had a little diagram, and I've had this before that actually people, instead of being excited by it, they were almost put off by it, because it was just a few people, because it was almost like, oh my goodness, do I have to have all those things?
Yeah.
And I put it in there because I wanted to say, well, this is what you can do, but I recommend starting simply. And I think what I'll do next time I do the workshop is I'll have 2 diagrams. I'll have like the fancy one and I'll have a simple one, and say, actually start off with this and focus on that. Because otherwise, if we're too perfect and we become unrelatable, is that the right word?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? We become unrelatable. And if we're in this to transform and help people, if you're too far ahead, then you're not going to be bringing people up. You're just going to be serving your peers in a way. So I think it's important to be relatable.
Yeah, and then it's just adding yet another barrier to people to get started, because then they do feel that they need all of these things, or it's the last thing people need is another barrier. But I do think that it's good to make people aware of that and just show them how the path that they can be on, and it's fine to start with where you are, and just plan to grow and develop in confidence, in on-screen skills, and sort of build out your studio as well, if that's something you want to do and if you enjoy doing it.
Absolutely. So in the same conference, like I was there with it was ridiculously over the top. I had 3 Stream Decks. Who does three Stream Decks? but I do. But actually, interestingly, people did come up and said, "Oh, wow, you got 3 Stream Decks," and they were really excited by that. So I think you just have to be balanced with this. You want to be professional, but as well as that, be real about your journey as well, and just don't try to be too perfect as well. I think it's getting that balance.
Yeah. I know that when I started doing my videos as just live videos, so I'd record them live, it's actually really liberating to not be going in and editing, because that was my whole problem before. I was over editing. So when I just decided, right, okay, no edits, just take me as I am, sort of thing. It was a quite liberating experience, really.
Definitely, yeah. And I'm just in awe of how much content you're putting out and how consistent you are, and the quality as well. And going back to the whole selfish thing, if you had got in the way of yourself, you wouldn't have created all that content that is so helpful to people, and that would be the world would be not a good place. Because
I would have given up.
I think
I would have given up because I hate the editing. So yeah. I just want to take a moment to talk about Ecamm Live. This is the live production Mac software that we're using to live stream and record this podcast. In my opinion, it is the best live streaming and recording software on the market today. So what exactly does it do? Well, essentially, it allows you to control the content that you're including in your video, be it a live stream or a recorded video. And you do this by building out different scenes that contain the content that you want to show. This content may be a feed from your camera, or indeed multiple cameras, or you may be sharing a screen, which is what I do a lot of in my tutorial style videos that I make for my Take One Tech YouTube channel. You can share the screen from a second computer, or maybe even a gaming console if you are a live streaming gamer. And just as we are doing in this podcast, you can also bring in guests using Ecamm Live's built-in interview mode, where guests can join from a browser and you can then incorporate their video and audio into your production. Finally, you can add all kinds of additional graphical and animated overlay elements and even movies to really add a level of branded professionalism that would be hard to achieve in any other way. The real magic happens, though, when you hit that record or go live button, because then you are able to seamlessly switch back and forth between all of the scenes that you've created. And indeed, this is how all of the videos have been created for my Take One Tech YouTube channel. And the reason it's called Take One Tech, by the way, is because all of the videos are made in one take with no edits. I just hit record, make the video, and as soon as I hit the end recording button, the file is there and ready to be uploaded straight to YouTube. What I love about Ecamm is not just the ease of use that it has when compared to other live streaming software, but also the greater flexibility it gives in terms of layouts and designs that you can create for your shows when compared to some of the hardware streaming solutions. And one thing that makes Ecamm great specifically for podcasts is the fact that it has the ability to record isolated audio tracks. So once we finish recording this podcast, I'll have a separate audio file for me, my guests, and any other audio tracks that have been a part of the recording. That makes the editing and repurposing of the content for the podcast so much more streamlined. It does have another little trick up its sleeve though, and that is its virtual camera feature. This allows you to take the video output from Ecamm Live straight into communication apps like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Discord, and so on. This means that rather than just appearing in Zoom meetings with a regular camera feed, you can now show up with all of the amazing production values that Ecamm Live gives you and deliver that straight into your Zoom meeting. And trust me, when you rock up to a Zoom meeting with Ecamm, the other participants will be truly amazed. So whether for live streaming, recorded video content, content or to level up your Zoom game, I highly recommend you give Ecamm Live a go. You can get a free trial by going to takeonetech.io/ecamm. That's ECAMM. takeonetech.io/ecamm. And of course, you can find a link to that in the show notes as well. You will certainly not regret giving it a go. Now, let's get back to the show. So how long would you say then from when you've first started getting into it, what's the sort of the path been like in terms of getting to the point where you are comfortable with doing this sort of stuff? How long did that sort of journey take? I know that it's obviously an evolution, as we are all on.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone's different. So there are some people out there who are like they love to get in front of the camera and they're just born performers. For me, it's been a long journey, and that's for a number of different reasons. So I think we just need to be. So I think at this point, it's a good idea to mention the whole comparison thing, because I think we need to remember that we all have different personalities, we all have different situations, we're on different points in our lives, and we don't always see the struggles that people go through. So we just immediately see somebody who's confident on camera, and we think, oh well, I could never do that. So for me, I think I think it was probably 2016 is when I first started doing live video. 2019 is when I launched my show. So it was May 2019. I launched the Confident Live Marketing Show, and I was nervous, but a lot less nervous then. But still, I think it's taken another couple of years. So I think for me, 4 or 5 years. But I think things are easier now because live video it's still not that many people are doing it, but a lot more people are doing it than when in my day. And I think one of the things I feel very strongly about is to share my struggles so that other people can find they don't have to make the same mistakes as well. So does that kind of answer your question? It's been a long time for me, but it doesn't have to take that length of time at all. There's if you invest in yourself, I think that's what it is. That's the key. You need to understand what are the barriers that are getting in the way, and get some help, get some coaching, speak to people about it. And I think I was nervous about doing that, but if I was to start again today, I would get the help straight away and talk to people, and just get on with it.
I love what you'd said really early on as well about having a group, your team, maybe your business team, but then also having the accountability team, I suppose, and the support team. Really.
Yes.
And like I'm in a mastermind group at the moment, and it's more about general content creation and things like that. But certainly having a supportive group around you to help, with anything, that you're doing, be it, starting out with live video, be it anything else. I always see value in mastermind groups and accountability groups to give you that sort of support. And you said something that was really crucial, I think, in that was that knowing that whatever critique they're going to give when you're asking for a critique, that whatever it is, where it is coming from a place of love and support to help you.
Yes.
So, I'm often asking for, what do you think about this idea or that idea, and sort of leaving the ego at the door as well, so that then anything that they tell you, you can take on board with, the spirit in which it's meant. But I think that's such a valuable thing that, if you are going live, if you've got people who can, join and watch that are people that you know and trust, then you can be speaking to those people. And that's a great way to go about it.
Absolutely. I mean, mastermind groups have been, I've been in mastermind groups over the years. They've been really, really helpful. If you can't find a mastermind group, this is something else we could talk about, but you can at least find people out there who believe in what you do. Just try and find people who are going to tell you the truth. Don't just surround yourself with sycophants who say, are awesome all the time. So there's that side of things. You do need to, you want people to, like, if you are doing something that isn't working, you want them to tell you.
Yeah.
But from what you said, it comes from a place of that they want you to grow. So it's, a mastermind is good, a mentors, a coach, all those things have different disadvantages and advantages, and I think having a mixture of those at different points in your life is really, really important.
Hmm.
And it's made a massive difference in me, because I think that was my big problem going back to, like 5, 6, 7 years ago. I just didn't believe in myself, and it was other people believing in me and
Hmm.
seeing that little spark in me. I thought, oh well, maybe I can do this, because I could have, being totally honest here, I could have, like, my company could have, instead of being called the Confident Live Marketing Academy, I could have called myself the Reluctant Live Video Guy. That could have been my brand name,
Right.
because that's how it was. I
Uh-huh.
don't think that would be the best name really for a company, but yeah, that's how I was. But it was other people believing in me and bringing out that confidence. And so if you're struggling with confidence, that is one of the biggest things I would work on. Find people out there that are going to help you, and what you won't like be able to change overnight, but start doing surrounding yourself with those people, and it's a case of going on this mindset journey. There are a number of books I'd recommend. There's Mindset by Carol Dweck, who I think coined the phrases growth mindset and fixed mindset. So
Hmm.
that's a book I would recommend. And there's a few other books that I'd recommend as well. But just start on this mindset journey, and you won't change overnight, but you will get that confidence. And the other thing is, you don't need to go live publicly. Go live in a group. Go find a Facebook group, like the Ecam Live
Hmm.
community is amazing, because everyone else there is rooting for you. So go somewhere where a safe place first. You don't have to go live to the whole world
Yeah,
first.
that's a great point, and especially about the Ecamm one, where you've got because it's often not just the actual speaking on camera and being in live. It's also all the tech side of it. And I often think that there's lots of people who have had on this show where they've got experience of like yourself, having singing experience or stage experience, whatever it happens to be. I mean, I've done public speaking, talking to however many people on a stage, and I've got no problem with that. But there's a difference between that and the live. And one of the things that's different about it is you're basically doing everything often yourself. I mean, you may have a team helping you or whatever, but often, live streamers are having to deliver the content, but then we're also, got our little fingers out of shot on stream decks or foot on stream deck pedals and things like that, switching things around. And so we've really become the camera guy, the sound guy, the producer and all that kind of stuff. And so we've got all of that extra weight on top of delivering the content as well. So how did you find that sort of side of it, in terms of, I know that you love the tech, and I do too, but how did you find sort of incorporating all of that? Because it does add another element of uncertainty. And we were talking before we started about, I like to be in control and certain about things, and tech just adds a few layers of room for error.
Yeah, well, I don't think we like us two. We love our tech, and we add like stream decks to the mix, and roadcasters, and I mean, I've seen your roadcaster setup. Oh my goodness, like it's I need to rewatch some of your videos to get my head around it all, because it's exciting stuff. But like, we don't help ourselves, do we?
No.
So what I'd always recommend, people start off with a very simple setup. Maybe use a web-based streaming tool, or just use Ecamm just out of the box, and keep it simple. You don't need a stream deck. You don't need any of these things. Start off with a microphone. I think decent audio is the key. But yeah, it is. So my streaming journey started with OBS Studio, and on an old PC laptop, and that was quite complicated to use. And then I used Wirecast, and that's even more complicated. And I used all these different tools, and I think I overcomplicated things. So I would forget things, and then I'd go live, and then I realized my microphone isn't added as a source in OBS or Wirecast. And Ecamm, thankfully, you don't need to worry about those kind of things. But what I came up with was a checklist. So I actually got to the point where I was actually, this is going to sound weird, but I was actually quite excited when something went wrong, because I thought, I need to add that to
something
my
else for the
checklist. So
checklist.
I'm not going to make that mistake next time.
Yeah.
And people in the audience were always like really, really very friendly, and said like, Ian, we can't hear you. And then they go, oh no, panic. And then And then I'd change that for next time. And then my internet might be a little bit dodgy. So I looked for ways of improving my internet. So for me, and I think this is maybe where it's having a growth mindset on this, it really helps. Because if I encountered a mistake, I actually saw that as a good thing, because it allowed me to make the next one better. And so I could add it to my list and I could find a solution to that problem. But if you have more of a kind of a, I don't know, poverty mindset thing, and you allow that kind of thing to stress you out, and then you think, oh, I don't know what to do, then you're going to struggle. And so you need to be able to have people in your life that can help you find the answer to those problems, or be able to do it yourself. And to see that as a positive thing, because next time you can solve the problem. So another mistake that I made is I forgot to press the end broadcast button at the end of a live. I thought I'd went to the outro video, and I thought, I can't remember on Ecan, do you have to press it twice to confirm? Anyway, there's some option anyway to end it, and I didn't end it. And so I was talking to the guest afterwards, and I was thinking, so yeah, do you think that went okay? Was it okay that it was? And I saw a few comments come through, and I thought, oh no, we're still live. Thankfully, I didn't say anything rude, but I could have done. So that went onto the list. Like, Ian, like, remember to press the end broadcast button. And I put that in my run of show, because what tends to happen, something very strange happens to our brains the moment we press the button, but also at the moment we press the end broadcast button, or we're just about to. So I always write out the first thing I'm going to say and the last thing I'm going to say, because I tend to forget what it is. Everything else is kind of unscripted. I'll put bullet points, but I always write out the first thing and the last thing, because I will forget.
That's what I do for this. I know what I'm going to say at the beginning and at the end, but anything in between is free flow. I'm good then.
Exactly.
I don't think there is any live streamer around that would say that they have never had a slight bit of paranoia about, am I still streaming? there's got to be something in everyone to just feel like, has something happened? Are we still live yet at the end? At the end of it, and I always have a sort of double check. Is it really done? Just to be sure about that. But it is so easily done to do those sort of things. And the other side of that as well is I've ended a stream before where I pressed the stream deck. I wanted to go to a different scene or something, and I pressed the wrong button. It's like, oh, I've just ended the stream. So it's so easy to make these little mistakes.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
But I'm all for checklists. A funny thing about checklists was I was doing a video all about. It was a live stream actually on Amazon, all about checklists, and talking about the checklist that I use before every live. And one of them was checking the mic and things like that. And what I didn't realize is, for some reason, it switched over to the mic in my webcam, and I hadn't checked it. So there's me doing a whole video about like the importance of checklists, and it was really dodgy audio coming from a webcam. But
that's happened to me. That's happened. I don't think I was doing a video on checklists, but I was doing a video on something or other, and the quality wasn't that great. Thankfully, it might have been Katie Simpson who mentioned something, because I think it has to be people who are used to watching you and notice something different, because like a lot of people's audio isn't that great. So it switched over to my webcam, and it was really bad. So, and then that was annoying, because then for the podcast I had half of it in really good quality, and the beginning bit was so I had to kind of do a bit of audio processing on that, which was annoying. But you remember it for next time.
It's a funny story anyway. That's the way I look at these things now. It's, I don't try not to lose sleep over it.
No, there are worse problems in the world, and the thing is, it makes you relatable, because the issue is they can look at all your videos and think, oh, the great Alec Johnson, he knows. He's like amazing. I could never be like Alec. He's just, and then if you make a mistake, you think, oh, he's not God. It's just that little element of humanity, I think.
The funny thing was, again, coming back to it, I mean, Katie was on just for a couple of days ago. I lose track of time, but we were talking about something, and I was saying, I couldn't really get my head around. I tell you what, it was Descript. The first couple of times I tried Descript, I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't, fathom it, or it didn't really sit with me, or whatever. And she seemed a bit surprised that I found it difficult to get into, or difficult to pick up. And the thing is, this is another point that I think people should be aware of is when I make a video, just as when most other people make videos, the ones that they put out are the ones that they know about. I don't put videos out that's me just kind of staring at the screen like with really puzzled look on my face, which I spend a lot of time doing. Yeah,
you could have a second channel which is just you looking at the screen like this.
Me trying to figure stuff out, yeah, because I only make the video once I've figured it out, and that often comes after a long period of confusion and trying to get my head around stuff. So I mean that comes back to it's the whole thing of social media in general. Really, is whatever people put out is just what they're comfortable with putting out, and it's obviously going to be almost like the best version of themselves, which is one of the reasons I like live streaming, because you don't get that. I couldn't remember what I was going to say earlier, and then there's no way around it. You just have to roll with it.
Well, definitely, and I think that's just kind of reminded me of somebody was mentioning Pat Flynn last week because he started off like one of his big successes when he first started was that he was the guy. He was learning. He's basically, I'm going to make all the mistakes so that you don't have to. So he didn't really know that much about podcasting, but he learned, and he shared the process of him learning. And I think that's a really lovely idea. There's a book called Show Your Work, and I want to do a bit more of this. Actually, is actually sharing the process. So it's not quite me in front of the screen looking perplexed for half an hour, but it's me thinking, I wonder whether this works, and then it doesn't work. It's a little bit more about the behind the scenes process, because I think that makes you more relatable. And I think that is one of the reasons why Pat Flynn was so successful, because he was relatable. I'm not saying he's obviously very successful now, but now his brand has changed because he kind of is like the expert on everything. Whereas and so perhaps he's not as relatable to people who are just starting off, because his audience has changed. But it's just something to think about.
Yeah, I'll have to give that some thoughts. Maybe the take two tech with all of the the ones that I don't get right, but. We talked about the gear before, and like obviously not needing to have all of the stuff, but it's still always nice to have a little peek and see what people have got going on. And I've only got one feeling quite. What's the word? I've only got one Stream Deck, so I'm feeling inferior now. But only joking. But perhaps we could take a little look at what you've got going on in your studio, and maybe talk a little bit about if I haven't put you on the spot, that is, if you could talk about like the sort of evolution of it as well. What did you start with, and how have you sort of built this up over time?
Yeah, so I started off I had a PC laptop, I had a Blue Yeti microphone, and a Logitech C920 microphone. It's a webcam, sorry. I always get those mixed up. And then the next thing that I got was one of these things here, if I can show you, which is a Heil PR40 microphone.
Oh, very nice. Yep.
Now, so this costs a lot of money, but for me, audio is really, really important. And so I wanted to get something really nice. Now, the problem with this microphone is that it's just XLR, so you can't just plug it directly into your computer. So I got I don't have it with me at the moment, but it's from a company called Focusrite, and it's the Scarlett Solo, or the Scarlett 2IT. And it's basically a digital audio interface. But now I've got this plugged into. I think you'll recognize this over there, a Rodecaster 2. So I did have the original Rodecaster, but I upgraded. So there was, and this, it is expensive, but the thing about this is, what I love about it is the built-in audio processing. Yeah. And before that, I was using this box called the DBX286S, which is basically a audio processing unit. But it's actually quite difficult to get right, and I got frustrated with it because I like to tweak, but not too much. And so the Rodecaster Pro, the original, and the Rodecaster Pro 2, yes, you do need to do a bit of tweaking, but it's kind of set it and forget it, really, which I love. And then I got one of these things, the first Stream Deck there, and I loved that. And then I did a lot of virtual events during the lockdown, and I then got a bigger the XL version. Yes. And then I found that wasn't enough, because there was a big event I was doing a couple of years ago when we had about 20 guests, and so I wanted to bring them in. And so I got a second XL Stream Deck. So I think it's completely over the top. You don't need that. And then I got I've got a Mac Mini. So this is the M1 Mac Mini with a little external drive, and then over here. So the camera I've got, I want to upgrade my camera, but currently you can't see it. But behind there it's the Canon M50, which does the job. It's fine. And then I've got a teleprompter with a field monitor thing which projects onto that. So that is basically my second monitor on my computer. So I can then so currently I've got my browser up there, so I can see that. And then I've got just a very basic monitor over there. I'm very jealous of your monitor, Alec. I would like to get that's another upgrade I'd like. But yeah, that's where I am right now. That's what I've got, and it's been a slow process. Ecamm is at the center of everything that I do. I have been using like Restream as well as on the side. I use Captivate FM for the podcast host. I use Descript. But because I'm a geek, I don't just use Descript. I also use Adobe Audition for the final bit. And that's, I think that's probably it. I didn't share my mouse. I've got a Logitech MX Master 3 mouse, which I love.
Yeah, they're
the
great.
Apple keyboard with the little Touch ID and what do you call it? Magic trackpad thing, which, I mean, ridiculously expensive. I mean, this is one, I'm happy that I've moved over to Apple, but like, I'm not happy about the money I'm paying. It's like £189, whatever that is in dollars, I don't know, for a keyboard. It's just, it's just wrong. It's wrong, but I love it. I love it.
Well, I've got the same mouse as you as well. And this is, on the pricey side as mice go or mouses go. But it's worth it for me just because of the amount of time that I spend using it. Exactly. I find I get frustrated with other ones. On a similar note to that as well, you talk about the Stream Deck and, you don't need to have 2, 3 or multiple Stream Decks. But actually, if you're, you've got a show where you've got lots of different scenes to switch between, or you want to have like a whole run of show on a Stream Deck, it can actually make the thing flow a lot better. So it's one of the things that I would always put down as, if I was recommending something to get, starting out, first audio is always going to be the first one on the list. But I'll probably put a Stream Deck a very close second to that, just to have that ease of press a button and it's going to change and, do all of those things. It is a really, it takes a lot of the stress out of it rather than trying to use the mouse to go and click to, if you're doing scene switching, obviously if you're just, a single sort of head to camera sort of thing, then maybe not. But
a lot of people are just using, they'll use like the likes of StreamYard or Restream or Wave Video. And you can get a Stream Deck working with those. But you have to map like keyboard shortcuts. So it's a bit of a hack.
Yeah.
And I think if you're just getting started, just use one of those web-based ones to begin with, like StreamYard or whatever. It's just simple. Just while you get your build and your confidence, and you can bring in guests. But as soon as you can, this is I'm sure you would agree with me. Like if you could use like a tool like Ecamm Live, because the thing about Ecamm Live is, it can seem a little bit overwhelming to begin with, but just keep it simple. Just use it simply to begin with. And the great thing about Ecamm Live is it will grow with you, because it pretty much does everything that the other like high level tools like vMix and Wirecast do. So there's a few little things that Ecamm doesn't do, but you probably don't need to know those things.
Yes, yeah.
So like, and if you're a PC user, I'm not one of these Mac fanboy evangelists. I still like Windows. Sorry, I've said that live on your show. Hopefully Doc Rock is not listening. But get the M1 Mac Mini is relatively inexpensive. It's very cheap for a Mac, and just put Ecamm Live on that, and you'll be absolutely sorted. It's I do want to invest in the studio at some point, but the M1 Mac Mini is amazing, and I use it for everything I do.
Yeah, it's amazing actually that they, what a massive leap it was with Apple Silicon with the first M series, and I was always the sort of person who would want to get the top spec, MacBook Pro or whatever it happened to be, and yet now it's a case of right, well, I'm not actually, doing something that warrants, all of that power. And it's amazing how well everything runs. It's night and day. The top spec Intel Mac that was out, just a month before the M1s came out, and then the M1s, the bottom of the line was just blowing those out of the water. So it has, I think, made Macs a lot more accessible and affordable for people, since then.
Oh, definitely.
Keyboards are still a bit pricey, though. I'll grant you that.
Yeah, but you don't have to go for the likes of what I've got. You can go
Mhm.
for a cheap. I mean, go for a cheaper one to begin with, but then save your pennies up for the better keyboards, because, like you say, you're spending most of your time in front of the computer with your mouse and your keyboard. So I think invest in things that are going to help you to be more productive. And I think those are important things because you're using them all the time, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned about Ecamm there as well. And although it can't necessarily do a couple of things that maybe those, some of the other higher end packages can do, it is the ease of use that I think that is the total game changer. It's so accessible. There is obviously a learning curve, as with everything, but I think the way you put it's great. That it can grow with you. You can start to add in more complex scene layouts and things like that. But just straight out of the box, as it were, it's very easy to just sort of get up and running with it. I went down the OBS route as well, and I love diving into new applications, and I'm a geek in that respect. But I always think that anything that's cross-platform, you end up with almost like the boast of the worst of both worlds, really, because it's got to work on both platforms. So
and it's the same. It's the same with Wirecast. I mean, I don't want to not Wirecast. It's a very, very robust product, and I do like it. But you see, Ecamm, it's more and more as they add more things. It does. There's very few things that it doesn't do. I mean, but there's multi streaming coming. Like OBS, Wirecast don't really have integrated comments, so you can't easily, without having to jump up through loads of hoops, add comments to the screen. If you want to bring in guests, OBS again does not have that. Wirecast kind of does, but there's so like Ecamm ticks or checks a lot of the boxes that the other ones do. Wirecasts, if you want to multi-stream in lots of different resolutions at the same time, yes, that has to be covered. Ecamm will probably not do that for the time being.
Yep.
But how many situations do you find yourself when you have to do that? And do you really want to, jump through all these other hoops and spend lots of money? And I remember when I was using OBS and Wirecast to set up my show, it would take me about half an hour every time,
right?
Because I would have to I would have to check that I've got all the microphones, the microphone on every single shot. And I'd have to make sure that the guest was coming in and that everything was routed properly. It would take me like at least half an hour. Ecamm, I mean, I like you, I always like to meet my guests 15 minutes beforehand. But most of the time, I've like spent 2 minutes just checking everything and it's all fine and then it's good to go. And that's what I want. I don't want the stress of half an hour or an hour making sure everything's working.
That's such a good point. I mean, everything in my studio is just pretty much left perpetually on, except the lights. I do like the fact that I can just come in and, Ecamm's still open and just switch the lights on, and then removing that friction is a huge part of it, because it's another barrier to you actually, coming right back round to the whole thing of going live. It's if there's any sort of obstacle in your way, it's another little thing that you can always just tell yourself, oh, this is going to be a bit, too much hassle to go and set it all up. So having that thing of just being able to sit down and do it is a huge part of, removing every possible obstacle to you actually getting started and doing it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so important. And I think I'll just very briefly on this, because I think this one thing I should have mentioned earlier that made a massive difference for me. And that is having a good solid plan. Like, why are you doing this? Because again, if you're speaking to that anxious part of your brain, like it's saying, well, why would you go through that? Why do you want to be attacked by a tiger?
Yeah.
And you say, I'm doing this for these reasons. And we'll all have different reasons, but like for me, it's for my business. I want to grow my business. I want to help people. I want to become more visible. I want to, have some free consultations with some amazing people. And those, I want to do it to be consistent. I want to do it to create my podcast. I want to do it for all these different reasons. And so if you have a plan of, who your audience is, why you're doing it, you know what the show is about, that's going to make it so much easier, because you can then come back to your, whatever the personified voice is, in your head, and say, look, I'm doing it for these reasons. There's a good reason why I'm doing it. And that really helps. So make sure you have a plan and stick to it. I mean, it can change over time, but that is why I have been consistent with my podcast ever since May 2019. I've not missed a week, which for me is amazing because I was not Mr. Consistent, I can tell you, until I did that plan. So don't give yourself any excuses. Make it easy for yourself.
That's a great bit of advice. There's also something else in there as well, which is about making a plan. I do hear a lot of people when, somebody's maybe anxious about starting live streaming or whatever, and somebody will just say, "Oh, just go live. Like it's just do it." But actually, when I started my my YouTube channel, I mean, this is the same with anything really, not just necessarily live streaming. But for me, I am someone who needs to get a certain amount of preparation done. And so I was very clear about having a period of time that I was going to spend with, getting all the things that I needed to get done. But I had a deadline of, I am going to do it on this day, even if there's some stuff that isn't quite right. And that's, to the recovering perfectionist part of me was, well, I'm going to do it anyway, regardless on this day. But I do need to have a little bit of preparation. I want to try and at least make the scenes look good in Ecamm and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, you don't want that stress, do you? Of like you're just about to go live and you realize nothing. You've got no scenes and it's all messed up. That is enough to like stress you up to the eyeballs.
Yeah. Well, I'll just pull up your website for a second, and perhaps I can just mention that anyone that is listening or watching on the replay, you can find links to everywhere where you can find Ian in there. But perhaps you can talk a little bit about like how you go about working with somebody. If somebody comes to you, they can obviously you've got a thing on the top there to for somebody to be able to click to get in touch with you, to work with you. What sort of things do you do to help people out when they come to you for consultations? And
yeah, thanks. So I've got something called the Confident Live Toolkit, which is kind of my main thing. In fact, it's just there. So at its heart, it's got a course called the Confident Live Launcher, which takes you through how to launch a live show, but also turn it into a content repurposing engine. So turning it into a podcast, into blog posts as well. So that's at its heart. But what I added to it, because I think what people really want are resources and templates. So there's a run of show template in there. There's the guest checklist. Basically, all the stuff that I've worked at over the last 3 or 4 years, you basically get to steal and use for your for your purposes. And if that is not enough, then you can upgrade. There's a VIP and a VIP Plus package, which basically is you get some coaching and some time with me, and I can hold your hand through the whole process. So those are the main things. I have other live video tool courses. I've still got one on OBS if you really want to do that, but that's getting a bit old now. So it's the toolkit I'd recommend that you go and have a look at.
Well, it's really good that you've got all the extra sort of systems and processes and things like that in there as well. And it's funny, Dina is Geraldine Wilkins is in the Amazon chat, and I was just talking to her just this morning at my time about your onboarding process for your podcast, and how you've got a really great document that you send out to tell people what they need to do beforehand. So I know that your systems and processes are top notch because I've been on the receiving end of them myself, and it's something I've yet to model that particular part of mine because I'm cheating really, because I'm only getting people who are excellent at live streaming as guests. But I really like that document that you sent out that tells people exactly what they need to do, to prepare to be a guest on the show.
I will say though, this is really important. You can make that document as amazing as possible, but people tend not to read them. So you need to then put put processes in place to remind them to read them, or to keep it simple. So one of the things I have on that process is I have the first page is like just 4-5 points. Those are the really important things. So like make sure you've checked your internet, you've got like microphone and all that. I can't remember what I say in it, but those are the bits that hopefully they're going to read. And then I've got this next thing at the bottom says turn over if you're like a super SWAT.
Yes, yeah.
And I think I nicked this from somebody. And so if they really want to, then I will talk about lighting and stuff like that. But quite honestly, I think probably 80% of my guests are not going to bother looking at that. But if they look at the first 4 things, then we're probably good to go. And if you're really nervous if you've got somebody, so I think your strategy with bringing people who have got a lot of experience with live, I think that's a really good strategy to begin with, because bringing somebody on who's really nervous about the tech is you have to have a lot more responsibility for them. But if that's the case, just meet up with them. Just set aside a half an hour a week or 2 weeks before, just to take them through and make sure. Because actually, most people are probably going to be okay with it. It's just they might need a few little tweaks.
Yes,
and then it'll be fine.
Uh-huh. Well, yeah, great stuff. I'm sure that in the download and that, there's going to be so many other great little things, because I know that you are. I've got the same attention to detail as I have, so you will have thought about all of these things for people. So definitely go and check that out. As I say, if you're watching or listening, go and check out that in the show notes. What else have you got sort of coming up in the next few weeks, months, by the end of the year, perhaps, or what are you working on at the moment?
Well, yes, I mean, it feels like I've just come back from these 3 events. I was live streaming this big event and doing my own workshop and speaking, and now I feel, oh right, what's next? So what I'm focusing on is I'm going to go back and do a lot more on Amazon Live, Amazon product videos. That's going to be a big priority. But it is this. It's the toolkit is what I'm wanting to promote. I'm thinking about tweaking my live show and podcast. I think because I'm getting up to 187 or 188 at the moment episodes, and so I'm thinking when I get to 200, I think I need to tweak it or change it or do something.
Right.
So that's the other thing. So yeah, it's a combination of those things. I'm thinking about like what do I want to do next year? Do I want to do any speaking next year at conferences? Is that a priority? So I think for me at the moment, that's a great question, but I don't know if I can answer it.
Right.
Because like I feel I'm in this kind of planning for the next stage. So it's planning for 2023. My goodness, 2023. So that's what I'm thinking about. So maybe ask me in a few weeks and I will give you a better answer.
Okie dokie. I'm in a similar phase myself. It's coming up to the end of the year, so wrapping up loose ends and planning for the next phase. Well, thank you so much for coming on and being so open and sharing with all of your insights and experience. And I know we've had a similar path on many aspects of this and continue to. So it's always nice to chat to someone who understand some of my past and current struggles as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's been awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me onto the show, and all the best with your journey, because as I say, I've been listening, watching, and I think it's great what you're doing. So keep the awesome stuff.
Cool stuff. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and watching. Thanks to all the folks in the chat over on LinkedIn and Amazon as well. If you are watching this on the replay or indeed listening on the audio, you may want to check out the video podcast over on my Take One Tech YouTube channel so that you can see some of the sort of behind the scenes shots that Ian shared. Finally, if you'd like to connect with Ian, don't forget you can find all of the links, all of the different things in the show notes. And if you want to connect with me, you can find that there as well. See you next time with another great guest and another great conversation. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.